Ladies and gentlemen, it is really a pleasure for me to be here with you in this innovative event, opening a dialogue between representatives of the real economy, of the financial institution, and of the government. Today I will analyze how the public sector is responding to the current crisis, and then the focus on the interaction between public financial institutions such as the European Investment Bank and governments in the region. I ask you in advance apologies for my voice, but the air conditioning in the hotel played me a bad trick. So let me start 35 seconds to explain you what the EIB is. It is a public financial institution created in 1958 by the Treaty of Rome. It's the European Union financial arm. It supports projects consistent with European Union objectives. The shareholders are the 27 European Union member states. Fortunately, the bank has a AAA rating, and this enables it to borrow on the financial markets at the finest terms available. Operating as a non-for-profit organization, the EIB passes on this financial advantage to its borrowers to finance investment projects. So for client EIB conditions, interest rate, but also the maturity of the loans are some of the most favorable that they can obtain. We provide also value added through appraisal and follow-up of investment projects and program. And furthermore, the intervention of the EIB in support of a project frequently acts as a catalyst to attract other lenders. Just to update the figures that we're giving at the beginning, in 2010, EIB lending reached a total of 72 billion euro. In the last 2 years, so 2009, 2010, the EIB total lending was about 150 billion. Today, we have a balance sheet of over 500 billion, and it makes the EIB the largest IFI, international financial institution in the world. It is also the largest lender in Southeastern Europe with over the last 3 years, it has financed projects for more than 22.5 billion. So let's talk about the economic and financial situation. Many things have already been said. The financial crisis started in 2008. It activated an unprecedented public sector response. Government, central banks, IFIs, such as the EIB in its countries of operation, stepped in to prevent an outright collapse of both financial intermediation and real economy activity. A key component of the immediate intervention of the governments almost everywhere was a large-scale fiscal demand stimulus. While this intervention often succeeded in halting the rapid decline in aggregate demand that followed the financial crisis, it came at a great cost. Just to focus on the European Union, the average fiscal deficit soared from 0.8% of GDP in 2007 to 6.4% at the end of 2010. Government debt also rose from 59% of GDP for the European Union as a whole in 2007 to more than 80% of GDP at the end of last year. So if we look at what happened in some countries in Southeastern Europe, we note that with the exception of Greece, whose debt to GDP ratio increased from 105% in 2007 to 142% in 2008, the situation leaves wider margins of maneuver compared to the European Union. In Serbia, the debt to GDP ratio in the same period increased from 29% to 31%, in Montenegro from 26% to 42%. In Turkey, just to mention another country, it went from 39% to 36% in 2009, although it decreased to 42% in 2010. The sustainability of such trend in European Union countries' public finance has been called into question by financial markets during the last months, in particular for countries with long-standing fiscal imbalances and lack of competitiveness. The stress in the financial markets and a weaker aggregate demand have negatively affected consumer and business confidence. The European economic growth outlook is also penalized by the consequences of fiscal tightening in many European countries, as well as by the worsening economic condition in the United States and Eastern Asia. The stock market also have fallen sharply, affecting particularly the banking system. So if we look at the latest growth figures, we see that in 2011, after a strong first quarter, the expansion has slowed down, and it is expected to come to a virtual standstill by the end of the year. GDP growth for 2011 is projected to reach, on average, 1.7% in the European Union, with figures which are very heterogeneous among the various countries. If we look at Southeastern Europe, growth forecasts from the International Monetary Funds were reviewed downwards, and the vast majority of countries will not grow this year above 2%. Okay, this unfavorable picture should not, however, overshadow the work done by policymakers to address some of the root causes of the crisis. If we look at what happened in the European Union, we see that there has been, at the beginning of the crisis in 2008, a short-term reaction designed to rapidly boost demand and restore confidence. This was the European Economic Recovery Plan. So this was a short-term action. At the same time, there was this need to fix in the short term immediately and to restore confidence, to fix the economy and restore confidence. But at the same time, European Union has adopted a long-term strategy, which is called the Europe 2020 strategy. This is a long-term strategy for competitiveness, which is declined in 5 targets for the member states. The 5 targets are the following ones. The first one is that 75% of the population aged between 20 and 64 years old should be employed by 2020. The second objective is that 3% of the European Union's GDP should be invested in research and development. The third is that the 2020 climate and energy targets should be met by 2020, of course. The fourth is that educational level should be improved. Fifth objective, social inclusion should be promoted, in particular through the reduction of poverty. This long-term response is activating a program of smart and sustainable investment in the field of knowledge economy, innovation, energy efficiency projects, clean technologies and infrastructure. In other words, those are in the investments which are needed to boost competitiveness. The EIB has been at the heart of the 2008 European Economic Recovery Plan, which was deployed both in the European Union but also in partner countries. We have provided, in a context of scarce credit, financial support to many projects. In particular, let me recall that we extended loan for more than 30 billion to support European SMEs, and this has contributed to mitigate the effects of the crisis on employment. As regards the long-term response to the crisis, so the European 2020 strategy, the EIB will help achieve the strategy goals through investment in research, innovation, green energy, the fight against climate change, and the support to the knowledge economy, and of course the support to SMEs. So to sum up, the crisis has highlighted the key role that public financial institutions such as the EIB, EBRD, could play in providing credit for vital investment which otherwise would have been cancelled or at least postponed, but all this in the framework of politically well-defined strategy. So public sector support has been key in the short-term response to the crisis, but it is also key in combination with private resources for the long-term response through the support of investment which create jobs and help strengthen competitiveness and stimulate growth. So this is very important because I think that the challenge ahead is quite complex. In general, governments dealing with fiscal imbalances have scarce resources available. These resources must be used wisely, possibly in order to activate to the largest possible extent private resources to address the impact of the economic crisis. Nevertheless, government cannot ignore longer-term needs to accelerate the transition to smarter, greener, and sustainable economy, which is both more competitive and dynamic. In this respect, I really believe that the governments of the region have reacted to the crisis in a very coherent way. They have cooperated actively with IFIs in order to mitigate the effects of the crisis and reduce the possibility of a credit crunch, but at the same time, they have remained committed to investment to foster the long-term competitiveness of the region. The countries of Southeastern Europe have reacted to the crisis with the direct support of the EIB, generally in two manners. On the one hand, governments have been able to maintain or increase public investment in infrastructure and to keep investing in the future. I will mention later some very interesting projects aimed at fostering the competitiveness in the future undertaken in Serbia in the fields of education and public research and development. But on the other hand, they have decided to make a specific effort to keep supporting the SMEs. And this has happened through their public development banks. I can mention some examples in Slovenia, in Croatia, in Fyrom, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Republika Srpska, or through direct borrowing, as it was the case in Serbia with the so-called APEX system, or through sovereign guarantees for commercial banks, as it was the case for Greece, Montenegro. In all cases, the EIB, but also other banks, have provided finance at favorable condition in order to support SMEs that, you know, are very much vital in order to ensure employment in the region. Let me now expand on the activity of the EIB in Southeastern Europe, where the EIB has been present since and in particular in the Western Balkan, where it has been present since 1977. In the last 10 years, the EIB has become the largest international financier in the Western Balkan, and with the total loans assigned for about 7.5 billion, supporting all major infrastructure sectors, as well as I said before, small and medium-sized enterprises, industry, services, and local authorities. The project that we have financed contribute to sustain the overall macroeconomy of the region, and therefore its real convergence to the European Union. But we have not only, together with our colleagues from the EIB and the other financial institutions, we have not only financed the project. The bank has played also an active role in the development of a key instrument for the region, which is the Western Balkan Investment Framework. This is an initiative that we developed jointly with the European Commission, the EBRD, the Council of Europe Development Bank, the European Union member states. And the purpose of this initiative is to facilitate the preparation, the financing of priority projects in the framework of the European Union pre-accession process. In 2010, the first year of existence of this new tool, it has granted directly almost 40 million of grants for the preparation of 39 projects, which will receive a total of 2.6 billion loan from ourselves. And these loans will be mobilizing investment for some 5.2 billion. So this is a very important tool, and this will help the implementation of very important projects. Touching upon specific sector, all priority transport corridors, which will become part of the trans-European networks when the candidate countries become European Union member states, have been supported, given their strategic role on the integration of the region with the European Union. So transportation has been a key area. Another priority target for the EIB is energy. Here we focus on 5 priority areas: renewable energy, energy efficiency, research and development in the energy, security and diversification of internal supply, and security of external supply and economic development of European Union neighborhood and partner countries. It was said before by President Tadic that renewable energy sources can make an important contribution to the sustainability, regional energy supply, and security. Hydropower is the most important renewable energy, providing over 20% of the electricity in the region. And in Turkey, just to quote one example, we have financed the construction of 8 hydropower plants with a total capacity of 955 megawatt. However, while significant potential for hydropower remains untapped, other sources can be explored, notably wind and solar energy. And we have many projects in these fields at present which are developed. I can quote some projects, for instance, in Cyprus, which is a country which at current is 100% dependent on oil, but thanks to the investment that we are supporting, will increase its share in renewable energy to 13% by 2020. In the energy efficiency sector, we are, for instance, apprising a project consisting in the refinancing of the thermal rehabilitation of apartment buildings in Bucharest, and this will allow to reduce to 50% their energy consumption. So infrastructure is one field, one priority, energy, but also SMEs. With reference to the SMEs, for which the EIB relies on the partnership with local financial institutions to outreach the entrepreneurs, it is to be noted a rapid development of loans in the last years, reaching in the Western Balkans a total amount of 2.4 billion in the last 10 years. In the last 5 years, nearly 1 billion has been disbursed to almost 2,000 SMEs, supporting employment and benefiting indirectly the population of the Western Balkan and Croatia. Finally, over the last years, the EIB has adapted its intervention in the region, in the Western Balkan, to the changing need of each country. As a way of an example, and this is something that probably we can notice more than those living here, we have seen how the needs have changed. For instance, I mean, in Serbia, but in other countries of the Western Balkan, we have moved from a support to the necessity of rapidly rebuild material infrastructure, also in the immediate post-war period, to the development of more long-term oriented projects, such as the support to education, research and development, which are so crucial for the development of competitiveness in the area. So we have seen that there are different countries, each one of them have different needs, and we are able to support all of them. In this regard, also since Deputy Prime Minister Jelic is here, let me mention that in March 2010, the EIB signed with the Republic of Serbia a 200 million loan to finance an investment program aimed at revitalizing public research and development activity. Investments included the upgrading of existing infrastructure, creation of a center for the promotion of science, creation of centers of excellence in priority research field. And this project also benefits of the grants provided by the Western Balkan Investment Framework. So it is very important. We keep on focusing on infrastructure and let's say, on material infrastructure, but we also have started to support what we can call immaterial infrastructure. So projects that will provide some fruit, which will be very relevant to enhance the competitiveness of the region. Let me conclude by looking at what stays ahead. Despite and throughout the crisis, the government of the region seemed to be committed to create a friendly business environment. These strategies for us are clear and are aimed at fostering economic growth and competitiveness. Governments are implementing these strategies by supporting the development of a modern network of infrastructure, by supporting investment in research and development, and by sustaining employment. This last objective, the sustainment of employment, is pursued both by attracting foreign direct investment and ensuring adequate access to credit for local SMEs. Moreover, local governments seem committed to achieve some progresses on regulatory, fiscal, and tax reforms too. We also have noticed the increase in their intention to work closely together with the European Union towards enhancing regional cooperation and commercial interaction. These economic and structural reforms have led to a more stable macroeconomic environment which is crucial for a sustainable economic growth and increase of foreign direct investment. In this regard, when talking about foreign direct investment, let me also quote briefly the 500 million loan that we extended to the Fiat Group in order to modernize and expand the production capacity of the automotive plant in Kragujevac. So all in all, the region is definitely on a good path. Nevertheless, there is more to be done to tackle the challenges ahead. Reforms should keep targeting the enhancement of Southeastern Europe growth potential and focus, inter alia, on further improving the business environment through the finalization of the privatization agendas, implementing public administration reforms, and accelerating the reform of the judiciary system to support the anti-corruption efforts, reinforcing the existing labor force through the detection and correction of skill mismatches through education reforms, advancing the flexibility in the labor market, deepening trade integration, and supporting innovation and research. So in conclusion, in recent years, lending activity of the EIB in the pre-accession area have kept increasing, and I'm sure that the EIB will continue in the future to contribute to boost the competitive growth of the region and will be ready to support a steady economic and social development of this very strategic part of Europe. Thank you.